What is up, YouTube? This is T-Quentin1, and today I'm going to talk to you about The Dark Knight, the sequel to Batman Begins. If you remember way back when I reviewed Superman the Animated Series, I said something along the lines of, seldom does there come along an adaptation that gets everything right. The Dark Knight is one such adaptation. Now, quick warning, if you don't want to hear someone gushing like a fanboy for the next few minutes, in the words of the Joker, get out now, because yeah, I think this movie is fucking amazing. Start off with one of the biggest positives. I think it's safe to say one of the reasons this movie is so beloved is because it's made for adults. And I think sometimes that phrase is overused when it comes to comic book movies, but it definitely applies here. What some people misunderstand is that made for adults doesn't mean vulgar or gory or even really an R rating, just mature. The themes presented in this film weren't in a whole lot of mainstream movies, period, when it came out, and certainly not in comic book movies. I praised the script to Batman Begins in my last review, but the script of The Dark Knight is even better, one of the all-time greatest screenplays in my opinion. And I think that's largely because David Goyer was only a third of the writing team here. Director Christopher Nolan and his brother, Westworld co-creator Jonathan Nolan, both heavily modified the script, and it shows. Speaking of Christopher Nolan, I think he brings every ounce of artistry that he brought to Batman Begins and doubles down on it. Not only is this movie shot immaculately, seriously, Gotham just looks so cool, but the action scenes are absolutely jaw-dropping. My personal favorite being that awesome chase scene in the tunnel, but there are many that are just unforgettable. The cold open bank heist, for instance, or any of the numerous scenes of Batman beating the ever-loving shit out of Gotham's criminals. And the best part? You can see everything clearly. Directors today often seem to try and use rapid editing and shaky cam to compensate for poor stunt work, but not an auteur like Christopher Nolan. The actors in this movie also perform like their life depended on it. I can't think of anybody in this movie that turned in a so-so performance. Even the minor characters like Maroni, Bullock, Ramirez, the Mayor, or Coleman Reese, I liked them all. Gary Oldman is still the definitive Commissioner Gordon in my opinion, and I like that we saw more of his family in this movie. Especially near the end, that led to some pretty emotional scenes. I want to talk about Aaron Eckhart because he's one of those actors that's really talented, but just keeps appearing in shitty movies. Let me tell you something. The reason he's still getting work at all is because of this film. He is great as Harvey Dent. When he makes the transition to Two-Face in the film's final act, he has a real menace, but you understand why he's doing what he's doing. There's a sense of tragedy to this character, and I think Nolan and Eckhart just nailed it. And he was likable before he was Two-Face as well. Michael Caine is still wonderful as Alfred. Just like Batman Begins, I really felt the connection between he and Bruce. Morgan Freeman, great as always. Fox is just a really fun supporting character anyway. And I think Maggie Gyllenhaal is a big improvement over Katie Holmes. She just feels more realistic and wasn't nearly as whiny in my opinion. She had a lot more layers. Christian Bale's Batman may be divisive, but I'm sorry, I think he just put on a clinic in this movie. I got used to his voice pretty quickly and thought he had a ton of badass moments as Batman. As I said, the fight scenes are wonderful. He also brought real humanity to Bruce Wayne and was the perfect foil for Michael Caine's Alfred. He was the perfect foil to a certain other character too. Alright, let's talk about the thing that everyone brings up when they talk about The Dark Knight, and that is Heath Ledger's Joker. Let me put it like this. The Joker is the single most famous Batman villain. And Heath Ledger was so good that they didn't even try to put this character in a live action movie until last year. That's an 8-year gap. That's just incredible. The Joker in this movie, I love that he's a force of nature. He's terrifying, funny, and actually kind of profound. All the dialogue in this movie is pretty superb, to be honest, but the Joker really has all the best lines, in my opinion. I like the ambiguity of his character, too. He's a lot scarier the less we know about him, and we know next to nothing about him. He just shows up to cause chaos, which is perfect characterization for the Joker, in my opinion. Also, I really like the design. And while I can say that no, The Dark Knight is not my favorite movie, it does have my all-time favorite movie scene, and that's the boat scene. As I get older, I find myself more attracted to stories about the good things people are capable of rather than the cruelties they can commit. And one of the great things about The Dark Knight is it's a film about both. Obviously, we see the latter with all the various atrocities the Joker does throughout this movie, but the boat scene really was the scene that proved that not all hope is lost. I don't even want to spoil it. It just gets me every time. Hans Zimmer's score is even better. It gets me so pumped up every time I listen to it. all in all, I think you could teach a filmmaking class on The Dark Knight. This movie is an absolute tour de force, and it's one of those movies where after I watched it, like Raiders of the Lost Ark or Mad Max Fury Road or the Toy Story movies, it reminded me why I love film so much. So, of course, I'm going to give The Dark Knight a perfect 10 out of 10. I fucking love this movie. Well, that's all for today. It's T Quentin 1 signing out.